wenn ich bin ein Rothschild. Oi, diddle, 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 dum. Ganze Tag wollt ihr sich bitte bam, wenn ich bin ein reicher Mann.
Hello and welcome to The Leap of Faith. Well, that's a familiar tune, but with a different title, and the words are sung in Yiddish. You may think you recognise it from the 1971 film A Fiddler on the Roof, where Zero Mostel's character sings about wealth. But this is the original version, If I Were a Rothschild, inspired by a 1902 monologue that references the wealth of the Rothschilds. They're a Jewish family, frequently the subject of conspiracy theories, many of which have anti-Semitic origins. These centuries-old anti-Jewish tropes and stereotypes still circulate and are not limited to one family, but to an entire religion. And tonight, we hear of an exhibition in the Jewish Museum in London, Jews, Money, Myth, which runs until July 7th. It's the brainchild of the museum's chief executive, Abigail Morris, and Abigail joins us shortly. Before that, and closer to home, this Sunday the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar will visit the Sikh temple in Sandymount in Dublin, the only one in Ireland, as part of their celebrations of Vaisakhi, the celebration of the holiest day of the Sikh year. Sikhs are also in the news this week, as Garda Síochána has said that Sikh men, who would be members of the force, are free to wear a turban as part of their uniform. Female Muslim Gardaí will also be allowed to wear the hijab. Well, last Sunday, the streets of Sandymount and Bowlesbridge were awash with the colour saffron when approximately 2,000 Sikhs turned out for the annual Vaisakhi celebrations, and our reporter Louise Denver was there for us.
Ireland's only Sikh temple is at 78 Serpentine Avenue in Sandymount, Dublin.
My name is Dublin Singh Jolly and I'm from Mumbai. Relocated to Dublin like 6 months ago from Philadelphia, and I've been living very close to the temple and come here on every Sunday to participate in remembering the Lord's name, the Vaheguru, and providing food to the homeless as well on every Tuesdays.
Almost 2,000 people will gather here for a parade through the local area.
Hi, I'm Silky. I'm from Ireland. We're living in Swords. We came to the prayer.
Get in the prayer.
Yeah, get a prayer.
I'm Shagun. I'm 9.
I am Kamalarani. Kamalarani.
My name is Kumar Gaurav and I'm from Source. And we came to celebrate Sikh culture, big date for the Sikh community today. And we're going to get in the prayer now.
This week, Sikhs across the world will celebrate the 320th Vaisakhi together.
My name is Dr. Gursharan Singh. I'm living here from last 11 years in Ireland. Sikhism was founded by Guru Nanak in the 15th century when the world was seriously divided into based on religion, caste, and there are a lot of gender inequality, racial discriminations going on. So this is how it evolves at the start. And the concept of God in Sikhism is Vaheguru. Vaheguru means which is shapeless, timeless, and invisible, basically. And Sikh ethics is the analogy between the spiritual development and everyday conduct. Sikhism is 5th largest religion in the world based on the number of followers. So the message from our founder was keep God in heart all the time and live honestly, work hard and treat everyone equally, be generous to the less fortunate and serve others.
This is just one of many events in the Sikh calendar. Can you describe what this month means?
This is a very special month. It basically is a new year for Sikhs. And this is the month where our 10th Guru Gobind Singh Ji actually started the foundation of Sikhism by keeping the name of the 5, which is called as Panch Pyare, the 5 Gurus of Sikh. This day in the history is known as the day when the Sikhism was formed.
Can you describe the building for me? It's very distinctive, and I remember passing it before, and it stands out here in the suburban landscape of Sandymount.
You know, as per my knowledge, like this was a theatre previously, and this was converted from theatre to temple. So you can see a large hall when you enter, and that's the main hall. And on the back side, we have a langar hall. Langar hall is where we offer free food. This is very interesting because our founder, Guru Nanak, his actually father gave him 20 rupees, which is for business basically, to go to the market and do some sort of business because his father was a businessman. It was the first time for him, you know. So when he was going with his friend, let's say, on their way to the market, they saw a lot of people were hungry. They had no clothes, they had no food to eat, and they were hungry. So what he decided, like, why shouldn't I do a business which will feed them free of cost, give them clothes so that they can feel happy. So the concept starts from there, which is called Sacha Soda. Sacha Soda means business, and Sacha means truth. So it's a true business for humanity to serve other humans, to provide free food. If you go to any Gurdwara all over the world, you will be, irrespective of your religion, caste, or your social status, doesn't matter. You have to sit down with all other people on the floor, on the mat, and doesn't matter you're a politician or a big rich man or a poor man, you have to sit with everybody equally and eat like a free food there. So this is how it started.
So you always eat here?
We always, whenever we visit temple, so we all eat here.
My name's Arminder Singh Bura.
There's food here today.
Yeah, I'm just volunteering. Just traditional Indian food. So there's aloo tikkis, which are potatoes. There's the bread pakora, which is bread and it's battered in ground flour and deep fried. There's the pakoras, which are vegetable and they're deep fried as well with batter. And yeah, that's it. Ja, which is the normal traditional Indian tea. There's spices, and that's what you'd smell. They're really strong smells.
You know, if you see all the preparation here, nobody has said, look, you have to come. No, everybody is doing from their heart, and they are dividing their duties.
I'm Jaspal Kaur, and from Dublin. I'm staying here since 2 years.
My name is Dilpreet. I'm 5. My name is Diltej. I'm 5.
It's a great feeling today to be a part of this procession. So I'm looking forward to this. He's my son, elder son, Gurtej Singh, and he's 12 years old. He's going to the 6th standard.
So you were born in India?
Yeah, I was born in India, so I just came here. I'm really liking the schools over here. It's like, they're really good.
I noticed you put the orange scarf on Dilpreet. Everyone is wearing this saffron colour.
Yeah, saffron, it's the colour of the Sikh. As you can see, this is the Nishan Sahib, which is the flag of our Sikhs. It is a kesari colour. So we are just representing the same thing. So we are trying to wear something of those shades, you know. People don't identify Sikhs here. They confuse with other religions. So it's a good thing, like people come to know. Because I see a lot of question marks on people, you know. They don't know who we are.
Jaspal, you'll be singing hymns today with a group from the community.
Yes.
What kind of songs will you sing and what do they represent?
Actually, they are the hymns which are taken from our Guru Granth Sahib, which is our present Guru. Hymns have different meanings, but all are taken from our holy book, which is the Guru Granth Sahib.
The songs we say is like a prayer. So it's all written in the book, which is called the Holy Granth Sahib book, which has been written by our 10 Gurus. And these are called as Shabads. And the Shabads are basically the message given by the Guru.
I will be like holding flags and banners or like in the parade.
This is your first time attending the parade here in Sandy Mount.
Yeah. It's a great feeling. Like I was very excited about it, you know, like waiting for it eagerly, you know. So let's see like how it goes today.
I'm Manmeet Singh, and normally we are 7 people who are main organizer here.
The plan for today is starting here in Serpentine Avenue and then you're moving through to Herbert Road. How long will that parade take?
Near about 4 to 5 kilometers.
You're using a walkie-talkie today, you're organising this event essentially.
The security is the main concern, so we are coordinating with Garda as well. They will instruct us. We will pass through information to everyone, you know, because it is much easier. There is no need to run here and there, you know.
And you have ambitions to enter the Garda Reserves?
Actually, when I was in India and that time, even in Indian Force, I tried my best to go in there. Still, it is in something in me. It would be great if I would be in Garda Reserve and I can help them in the development of the community because I know my language as well. And it would be helpful for them as well, you know, if they want me to translation or something like that.
You wear a turban, and earlier this month it was announced that Sikhs in the Garda are permitted now to wear a turban. What does that mean for you?
The main thing is like, first of all, this is not just a piece of cloth, it is turban. It is kind of a, you know, our crown as well. So that's why it is more important than even ourselves as well. Just to show like we are very unique, you can just easily identify like this man is Sikh.
I'm Kiran Preet. Yeah, and we live here in Tawny. I'm just going with the procession. Nothing doing something special, but they're following them. It's a kind of get together and to spread the message that our religion gives to us.
My name is Jagpreet Singh. Actually, I'm one of the directors from the Gurdwara Sikh Darbar Dublin.
So today you're giving out miniature Irish flags.
Yeah, we're just giving kids Irish flags. So we just want to show equality. We're the part of the country, you know. We want to blend in the country as much as we can. So there is no any difference whether we are Sikhs or you people are Irish. We all treated everybody equally as one.
I'm Greg Barron.
I'm Emily Rose.
I'm their dad, David, here, yeah.
This is your house here on the route. Have you seen this parade before?
No, we only just moved in here now, and we heard there was going to be a parade here today now, and the colour is just fantastic. And what's really great is they've given out, I didn't know anything about this, so they're giving us out brochures telling us about the whole Sikh culture and community and what they're doing here in Ireland.
It's funny, I'm actually learning about this in school. And then seeing it here now is amazing. It's amazing.
They actually clean the roads here when the leaves get dirty. It was on, but we came here one day, we saw bags of leaves thrown. We didn't know who did it. We thought it was a corporation did it. The community do it here to thank the community.
This is the traditional way of the arts we are doing. This is the traditional way of the Sikh arts that we perform. That's like in the old age, like these are the arts they do. They make the Sikhs ready for the wars and this and that.
Throughout the parade, groups are practicing Gatka, a form of martial arts.
My name is Harjinder Singh. I'm the lead instructor for this group.
People have come from far and wide for the celebration.
Yeah, I'm from Birmingham myself. We're performing with different instruments, swords, sticks, bow staffs, shields, balls and chains.
You wear a dagger as well.
It's called a kirpan, which means merciful sword. So it's not for using arrogance or hatred or bad. It's only for the good of others and to protect the weak and those who can't fend for themselves. That's one of the 5 Ks.
There are 5 symbols of faith worn by Sikhs, known as the 5 Ks.
We have a comb, which is a kanga, that keeps our hair neat. We have the kada, which is the bangle, the long undergarment, which comes to our knees, and then we have the dagger, and we have the unshorn hair, which is a gift from, we believe hair is a gift from God. So
I'm Ben. I'm Sam.
What age are you, Sam?
4.
What are you holding there in your hand?
My poster.
So you have an orange poster to wish everyone here well today.
Yeah. I made it at my friend's.
And what does your poster say?
Happy Vasiki. Happy Vasiki. Says, have a fun parade.
Louise Denver there at the parade in Dublin last Sunday, marking the most important festival of the Sikh calendar, Vaisakhi. The Jewish Passover begins on Friday next, April 19th, and is a commemoration of their liberation by God from persecution and slavery in ancient Egypt, and their freedom as a nation under the leadership of Moses. The Christian celebration of Good Friday finds its roots in the Jewish feast of Passover, the evening on which Jesus was crucified as the Passover lamb. Well, taking place throughout this period is an exhibition called Jews, Money, Myth, which runs until the 7th of July at the Jewish Museum in London. It sets out to explore the role of money in Jewish life, discovering the ideas, myths and stereotypes that link Jews and money over the course of 2,000 years. Some of the artefacts on display range from a 1933 Oxford dictionary that defines the verb Jew as to cheat or overreach, and a family board game from 1807 called The New and Fashionable Game of the Jew, featuring a central illustration of an opulently dressed bearded figure smiling while hoarding money. Well, joining me from London is the director of the Jewish Museum, Abigail Morris, and on the line from Dundalk is broadcaster and commentator on Jewish affairs in Ireland, Yankee Fackler, who's also on the board of the Irish Jewish Museum. You're both very welcome to The Leap of Faith. Abigail, can I start with you? The idea, I suppose, that comes into a lot of people's heads would be there would have been plenty of propaganda generated by the Nazis towards the Jews, but this goes back much further back, over 2,000 years.
It does, yes. It's interesting that you picked that out because most of the English and British journalists have asked if it's in response to what's been going on in the Labour Party in the last 6 months. And the answer is that the exhibition was planned about 5-6 years ago. So it's not a reactive exhibition about Jeremy Corbyn and what's been going on there, but it also looks way back. And one of the things that's really interesting is, for example, it's interesting you bring out the Nazi Party, Michael, because in fact one of the things that famously the Nazis did is made all the Jews wear a yellow star, and we see a bit of graffiti in 1275 from England, which portrays a hook-nosed Jew, and the Jews in 1275 were made to wear badges to mark them out as Jews. So that even that thing. So the trope about them being hook-nosed dates right back, and also the thing about having to wear badges to identify them. In those days it wasn't a star, it was a thing that looked like tablets of stone, the Ten Commandments, but they had to wear that badge.
We hear the idea that in order to subjugate or eliminate a population, that you have to generate another or a difference. How long and when did that difference start? Because even in the Christian faith, there was an idea that Judas being the different Jew from Jesus and the other disciples.
Yes, it's really interesting because Judas is often seen as sort of archetypally Jewish, whereas, of course, Jesus and all the disciples were Jewish. But what's really fascinating, and something I didn't know till I started working on the exhibition, was that Judas wasn't seen negatively until the Middle Ages. So Judas, at the beginning of early Christian thought, Judas was obviously a very close friend of Jesus, and also was part of the story of his being crucified, without which obviously humanity wouldn't have been saved in Christian theology. And so what's interesting is the negative stereotype of Judas and him being seen as archetypally Jewish came out of the stereotyping and the anti-Semitism around Jews and money. So what's interesting is Judas wasn't seen as negative until the church started to try and point at Jews and say they're usurious, they're greedy, they're moneylenders, and then they then created Judas as this kind of evil, tempted by the devil, greedy person who would betray their best friend for money.
I'm curious as to what the reaction was when you maybe first mooted the idea of the title, Jews, Money and the Myth.
Well, I have to say that when I mooted the idea, it was quite nervous. My board and some of our supporters are really nervous, and just saying Jews and money makes a lot of Jews really scared, that they just feel we should keep quiet, and really people are feeling very frightened, particularly at the moment. Funnily enough, we actually had a different title, and because of the fear around the whole exhibition, we did a whole lot of focus groups to allay people's fears and see what was right. The original title, in fact, was Loaded, ? Because we thought that was quite interesting, the term being loaded, but that got a very negative reaction from our focus group, and so we changed it to Jews, Money, Myth, which is still quite punchy, but seemed to be less scary for people.
It's an interesting idea, because for any population to be described as wealthy and loaded and with access to money, in some cultures would actually be somewhat of a compliment.
Yes, I mean, one of the things that's interesting about the exhibition that it shows is that wealth didn't necessarily mean power. So you had Jews who were wealthy in the medieval times and in 19th century, although the vast majority of Jews were dirt poor. And of course that's something that often gets forgotten, and the exhibition is careful to point out. But that the Jews themselves and all their property were owned by the king. So their wealth was only totally contingent on the king's wishes. And when debts were accrued, the king got rid of all the Jews. And there's one document where it's saying to a Christian, don't lend your property to a Jew, not about anything anti-Semitic, but just because, well, the king can come and claim it, because it will actually be then owned by the king. So one of the things is, and obviously your point about Nazi Germany, there were lots of very wealthy Jews as well who were murdered by the Nazis. So it's not as if wealth actually does really equal power.
I'm chatting with Abigail Morris, who's the director of the Jewish Museum. Abigail, we'll come back to the exhibition specifically in a moment, but I want to bring Yankee Fackler in here now as well. Yankee, did we in Ireland continue that trope, that meme of the Jew money as it's been described today?
There was, in the middle of what was called here the emergency, and in Britain, of course, is known as World War II, a new member of the Irish Parliament made his maiden speech. His name is Oliver Flanagan. He's actually the father of today's Minister for Justice. And he stood up in his maiden speech and he spoke about the Jews having crucified Jesus. The Jews were crucifying the Irish every day. And he finished his speech as follows. Where there are bees, there is the honey. Where there are Jews, there is the money. And he congratulated Germany, this is in 1943, in the middle of the war, for routing the Jews and doing the right thing.
Where did that permission come from, that a man could do that?
The question is, it's not where the permission came from. Why did not a single solitary deputy make any objection to what he said in the door? That's the question which I think is a more important one to answer. Michael, it's interesting. You and I have discussed anti-Semitism in the past, and one of the things that occurred to me when I was reading through all the press reports on Abigail's exhibition in the wonderful London Jewish Museum, which of course I've been to, is that some people literally do not understand what or where or why anti-Semitism. I've been asked, but why is there anti-Semitism? From people who honestly cannot fathom what makes an anti-Semite. So it's an interesting response, especially in the light of this exhibition.
Abigail, I'm nervous of making a comparison here for a moment, but if as Irish people were to set a similar museum in place as to how they were perceived over the years, the tropes would be somewhat similar.
Similar to how the Jews have been perceived.
Yes, as in the caricatures or the grotesque face, etc. I'm thinking back to, for example, Punch magazine in the UK.
Punch magazine, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I suppose that's true. I'm not an expert on Irish history. So and there is often the thing, and absolutely Irish have been very discriminated against. There's no blacks, no Irish when when people tried to come over, particularly in the 50s, into Britain. But I think the thing about the anti-Semitic tropes is it's 2,000 years, and it's. I think the thing that Yankee was saying is they're so embedded that some people don't even realise how embedded they are. I mean, there's just a very little example, I suppose, is people talk about Jesus cleaning the moneylenders from the temple. And that's kind of, everybody said that there's lots of imagery in stained glass. We have a beautiful stained glass 16th century panel from Germany, actually, which we've borrowed from the V&A. And actually, they weren't moneylenders in the temple. There were money exchanges in the sense that people had to give a tax. All Jews had to give a tax to the temple of half a shekel. So there were money people who would give you change or change your money if you didn't have the right amount. And how that's just gone into the common knowledge as Christ having to clean the temple of all these usurious moneylenders, which they weren't there.
But I think, Abigail, you also have your own experience. I think that you mentioned elsewhere about you being at school, and I think, was the Merchant of Venice was due to be put on?
Yeah, no, we were just reading Merchant of Venice at school, and I think I must have been about 12. And an English teacher who I really adored, actually, and we were reading around the class and giving out parts, and she said, "Oh, Abigail, you're Jewish, you should play Shylock." So at the time I thought, oh, okay, I didn't really think. So I started reading, and she said, no, Abigail, do the Jewish voice. And I said, oh, what do you mean? And she said, do the Jewish voice. And I'm the kind of person who likes to please people, and I was quite upset that I couldn't do it. I didn't know what she meant. And I went home and I said to my parents, who speak in a similar accent to me, who were born in London, and I said, what did she mean, do the Jewish voice? And they said, no, that's horrible. And they actually said, of course, which is interestingly, they also said what she's talking about is a caricature of a sort of late 19th century Middle European Jew, and of course, actually around Shylock, that Jewish voice didn't even exist.
And Fagin in Oliver was another one of those caricatures that you think of as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what was interesting when we did the focus groups was most non-Jews didn't know that Shylock was Jewish, which I found really surprising, because if you were Jewish, you were so aware of that idea of the Merchant of Venice, yeah. and they didn't know. And these were educated people who go to plays and museums all the time. Just should say, just in terms of also telling the fuller story, we've got a very beautiful, a loan that I was incredibly excited about, is a Rembrandt, and it's a Rembrandt from a private collection, so it hasn't been seen for a very long time. But what's interesting is the picture that Rembrandt, it's of Judas, but it's of Judas returning the money. And in Matthew it says that Judas tried to return the 30 pieces of silver, penitent Judas, and that's what the painting is. And it's very beautiful, but I think it's very interesting that Rembrandt chose to show a different side of Judas, that it wasn't the Judas being tempted by the devil or being evil, but actually this very humane, distraught person who feels terrible about having done the wrong thing.
Well, the exhibition runs until the 7th of July at the Jewish Museum in London. You can get more information at jewishmuseum.org.uk. Yankee, of course, we have our own Jewish museum here in Ireland.
We do. It's really known most by tourists and by schools. It hasn't really managed yet to break into the mainstream, but it's been going for a few decades now. It's got some delightful artifacts. Unfortunately, it's not big enough to host the sort of exhibition that we might be able to host. But I'm hoping that the museum will one day be able to address specific exhibitions such as this one, because this is a really, really important subject.
Yankee Fackler, board member of the Irish Jewish Museum, and Abigail Morris, director of the Jewish Museum in London. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed.
And before we leave you this week, a quick mention that Father Pat Collins, who was a guest on the programme last week, is giving a talk about his book Freedom from Evil Spirits, Released from Fear, Addiction and the Devil. That's in Newman University Church on St Stephen's Green next Wednesday, April 17th at 7 o'clock. So, until next week, from producer Sheila O'Callaghan and me, Michael Cummin, good night.